where they can see and record actual events as they took place. I had a lot of questions about the Old and New Testaments, and about the person called Jesus. A lot of us have those questions. After all, how is it that a loving, a forgiving God wants to throw us into an abyss for making mistakes? It's extremely dysfunctional, because fear of doing or not doing throws you into total inaction. Back to Jehovah. Now, the Hebrews are what is left of an ancient tribe of Chaldeans. The word Jehovah, in the original tongue, meant is, was and will be. It never meant, at any time, Creator of all things. That meaning was added later. Now, the reason that he was named is, was and will be, was that like many races of extraterrestrials, the Jehovah have an extremely long lifespan. They live thousands of years. The Andromedans, for example, live an average of 2,000 years. Some of them live more than 4,000 years. The Chaldeans were the remnants of the Sumerians. Much of the Hebrew religion and the religion of the Sumerians are similar. The books of Moses do not suggest that Jehovah was the only Lord of the Elohim in the area. For some reason, people have just assumed that what they have been historically told by those in power is true. Abraham did consider Jehovah to be a god because of the technology of the Elohim that he possessed, and used to awe the primitive population. That's all they used, technology. If you were to take somebody today who had a jukebox, a flashlight, a CD player and a computer, and you brought that person back to the time of the ancient Hebrews and ancient Egypt, that person would be considered a god because of the technology. Think about that. Technology was used to strike fear into the people, and they were made to worship to avoid punishment. Many of the gods did the same thing. Marduk, Enki, and Enlil were notorious for doing this. These extraterrestrial manipulators also created bigotry, because they each controlled their own groups of people, and each of their offspring procreated with the population of the earth. According to Morny and Viscius, our Native American races are the remnants of the ancient Babylonians that were brought over here by Enki, just prior to the Great Flood of Noah. According to the Andromedans, this Flood of Noah, as it is popularly known, was literally a result of the movement of the planet Earth from one rotational orbit to another within the solar system. This movement also added 5 days to our year. Many of the extraterrestrials who had offspring while here saw their offspring considered half-breeds, and the offspring were not allowed to leave the planet. According to Morny and Viscius, the half-breed offspring were originally called Magi. The Magi. Now, much of the technology that the extraterrestrial parents did not choose to take with them when they left remained in the hands of the half-breed children. They were given this technology, and much of it has been passed down generation to generation. Morny has said that right now that one of the places on our planet that has the richest collection of extraterrestrial technology is Nigeria, and to my knowledge that is an area that hasn't really been touched by exploration. This technology was primarily based on sound, color and radionics. The Magi interbreeding resulted in the cultures we today recognize as being called Israeli, Mayan, Celt, and Aryan. According to Morny and Viscius, the Titans of ancient lore were from the Pleiadian system, and some of them are today living inside some of the planets in our solar system, the closest one being Venus. Now, the serpent race. The serpent race has apparently been here a very long time, long before the genetic experimentation by different extraterrestrial groups took place. As Sitchin mentions, these genetic experiments on the planetary population had as an objective the creation of a slave labor force because the extraterrestrials themselves would not do hard labor. Now, where have we heard of that before? Our own creation of slave labor, which emulated what the extraterrestrials had done before, to us. According to Morny greater than and Viscius, the first genetic melding between a human species and the primate race occurred 28,731,007 BC. That's how far back they began experimenting, and there were many prototypes. All our concepts involving language and social structures have all been introduced to us by extraterrestrials, both good and bad. Our ancestors were taught these structures. According to Morny and Viscius, Adam and Eve were not the first man and woman at all. In fact, they were not even individuals. They were tribal races. I asked Morny how the extraterrestrials were able to have such control over the population. He said primarily technology, but he also said that the single most important race, as primitive as your own, is through the water supply. You have to have water. Over time, civilizations came and went, imploding in on themselves. The civilization of Atlantis was one of these. The priesthood that survived the sinking of Atlantis became known as the ones from Naga. According to Morny, the descendants of this ancient Atlantean priesthood are known popularly as the Illuminati. We know that those philosophical concepts exist today. Unfortunately, the main concept is that the needs of the few outweigh the needs of the many. I seriously have a problem with that. In your time and space, the expression of fear will be a challenge to you all. For any of you to be in fear, you lack a clear understanding of most situations. We have observed that your world is at a most confused point in your history and evolvement. We understand your remarkable drive and commitment to being alive. We, however, are not in understanding of your need to create tools of death, expecting that they will keep all in a space of understanding and peace. We observe that you build, create and plan in a space of fear, not in a consciousness of love, so your defense